started the store in 1993. I was 17 years old. I had accumulated a lot of comics when I was younger and didn't know what to do with them, so I brought them to a local comic book store. They offered me not that much money for it, so I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And they said, well, you should go to a show and sell them at the show. And I was like, okay. And instead of selling them at the show, I bought more comics. And at the same time, in school, I was in economics class, and they had like a stock market game, and I bought Marvel stock in the game, and I bought Marvel stock in real life. So that went up like crazy. So I had so many comics, and I had this stock that was sitting in the world, and I sold the stock for a lot of money, and I opened up my first store. When we first started, I still went to school. So I would get out of high school and work at the store from like 3 to 8. And then after that, I went to college for 7 years, and I would go to college and then work at the store. A lot of it I don't even remember. I think it wasn't until I stopped going to college that I remember like having to focus on the store. Like anything else, like if you're going to be an artist, you have to focus on art. If you're going to be a filmmaker, you have to focus on film. I was not focusing on the store. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. It wasn't what I wanted to do. When I stopped going to school for art and film, that's when the store became my art and film, my canvas. I didn't know how to pick location, so I just picked the cheapest city in Broward County at the time. And that was Lauderhill, and then made it a destination store for people to come here, But normal comic book stores are like your local comic shop. And diversifying into other stuff. Like the first store was only 800 square feet, and it was like my comics, my toys, my collectibles were in the store. So I sold all my stuff to start the store. We kind of changed and evolved to be a pop culture store and a destination store where it was fun to come to and hang out and be here for longer than the amount of time it takes to get a periodical comic off the shelf and leave. We had Batman v Santa and Spider-Man v Santa. No one did that. No one had a chair in their store that looked like something out of Akira, and you come in and get your picture taken with Santa. We did the dating game where we had tons of people sign up, and then we had speed dating, and people met their spouse here and met their boyfriend and girlfriend here. And we've had multiple people get engaged here. We've had one or two weddings here. I've met my wife here in 95. So it's the whole thing. And when people I black out the front windows and not let anyone see inside. For you, your first experience of the store is when you walk 10 feet in and you go, oh, look how big this store is and how wow it is. So our typical customer base is everyone from 4 years old to 70 years old. It's really, since we've been around for 30 years, it's really like people who were kids when they first came in here are now adults, and they bring their kids in here. There used to be a stigma of only boys and men go into comic book stores and read comic books, but now it's it's open to everybody. It's almost like our staff. Our staff is diverse, and our employees are diverse. We won the Eisner in 2009, and that was made it a cool thing in the comic book world to be you're known, you're somebody in the comic book world now, and I didn't expect to win that. And judging the Eisners years later, to judge the content of books and the art of books was an honor for me. The store's been around for 30 years. This is our 30th anniversary. This is the final incarnation of the store at 10,000 square feet. We own Tate's is the main store, and then we have the gaming satellite, which is like a 4,000 square foot Dungeons and Dragons card game store, to hang out and play games in. That was open 20 years ago. So the 20th anniversary of that is this year too. It's evolved to now I only have to order new stuff, like all the new comics and not all the new toys anymore. I've been able to delegate to people that I trust, that know the store and know the industry, to be like, okay, you guys can order this and I don't have to anymore. So, and now I only do that. I don't do any of the day-to-day operations anymore. But I also don't live in the area anymore. So I live in upstate New York, a town called Schenectady, a city called Schenectady, which is the city that lit and hauled the world in the Industrial Revolution. I moved there because Florida got too crowded, too crazy, too hot. I want seasons, and just was a change of scenery, and moved there because better schools and because I have kids. It was just, I got overwhelmed with the store for a little while, so I had to separate myself from it. Working it since I was 17, it was tough. Now it's better. I mean, I miss working at the store. I come down every quarter and I work for a week straight, 6 till we close. It's funner now than it was when it wasn't. Some of the biggest challenges are over ordering, because if you over order a comic book, you're stuck with it. You're stuck with a $3 book, until it goes in our back stock or goes out in our bins and hopefully somebody buys it. Also, having a good staff and understanding what Tate's is and how Tate's runs, because it's not just me anymore. It's now like a conglomeration of people who are bringing their heart and soul to the store to make it what it is. I mean, we buy collections every week. And now that I live in an area where people have basements and attics and have lived there for a long amount of time, I go to flea markets and garage sales and buy stuff. But when somebody brings a collection in, we have different people who do different things in the store. So one person works on back issue comics, one person works on toys, one person works on graphic novels or manga. So they evaluate the collection to see if it's worthwhile to us. And then we offer a price, and the people can say yes or no. And then if we get the collection, it gets processed. Some stuff goes into the main store, gets put out right away for sale. Some stuff goes in our back stock, and then some stuff goes into a storage that will eventually go into the sale that we do once a year. My employees just know how I think and how I want, what stuff I want in the store and what stuff will be a good fit for the store. Like our back issue guy, I've known him for almost as long as I've had the store. So he knows how I graded when I used to grade comic books. He grades better than me. He knows the knowledge of who was in certain issues at a certain time. Evaluate the book. Our action figure people grew up with action figures, so they know what action figures are cool and what we can sell for, what parts go with action figures, and so we do it that way. Since I look for certain things like vintage Star Wars and older comics, and that's it. Just focus on that and get that and ship it down to the store, because I feel that Star Wars has been one of our base things, and now that Star Wars is becoming 50 years old, it's harder and harder to get. Anything that is related to something else, anime, manga of a certain character, Attack on Titan, get the Attack on Titan figures. If you love a genre, then you, as a collector, seem to want to collect all different kinds of things. Little trinkets that you can put on your desk, little keychains you can put on your thing to identify yourself with that manga. I like this. Now it's I'm going to wear it on my chest. When I was younger, you didn't wear superhero shirts to school because you were a nerd. Now it's cool to be into everything. which is cool, which is great. With more unique stuff that comes out and more stories that come out are great. But it's more like diversifying in people so that those people can use their talents to be able to acquire collections. Rare, like where it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I found like 2. That is like a whole different market. Like people, if it was available and I could afford it, I would buy it. But if it's not available, then I won't buy it. Like we find the mid-range collectibles of the higher end first appearances in the 60s and 70s and 80s, the higher end toys of Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers. But I find we get collections every week. And every week there's usually something cool in there that's rarer than something else. I mean, our life-size Hulk that we had for like 15 years was pretty cool. I bought that from some tattoo shop in Jacksonville and got it shipped down on the back of a pickup truck. That just sold to somebody, a museum in Kentucky. We had Fantastic Four #1 years ago that was in here for like 2 weeks because it was so popular and sold. My Turtles #1 was a cool book that sold pretty quickly too. So like those higher end books, like as soon as we put them on the shelf, they sell. Some original artwork that's come in. I just found a collection up north of original artwork that had like sketches by like famous comic book artists, and just a guy just happened in there who, knew I was into comic books and was like, I have this stuff. I like it. I like a couple of years ago in New York, I went to a garage sale and I bought the guy who was about my age, his whole Star Wars collection that was his from a kid. And I just went to the garage sale and there it all was, like in the Darth Vader case, all the action figures, all the vehicles. And I just was like, I'll just take all of it. Like there isn't anything that I've said that like is the best thing ever, but like there's been stuff in here that has been cool. That's unique. I mean, it's always been actually considered as an art form, I guess you can say, because Liechtenstein stole pictures from old comic book guys and then blew them up and sold them as modern art back in the 70s and 60s. As an art form, there's been schools to go to become a comic book artist and then in the 80s and 90s and have made prolific comic book artists. Will Eisner, who used to live in Lauderhill, created the sequential art books, and his artwork was amazing, and what he did with a pencil and pen were amazing. And now comic book pages are going for crazy money. A lot of comic book artists are drawing in digital, so they don't have a original piece anymore. That kind of, to me, it saddens me because I can't hold the original comic book, but it's still art. I don't think comic books ever caught on to be a digital format. I've had the app for Marvel and DC in the past. I would read it for a little while and then I would lose interest. Back in the day, I heard that print comic books were like the amount of a sheet of paper. That's how much money print comic books make. And like the amount of a piece of dental floss. That's how much digital comic books make. And that's what the analogy that like the publishers would use. We're not focusing on digital comics. I think that the overall reading of comic books has gone down, even digital and not. But on the other hand, I think that there's a big thing where people are starting in digital, kind of like Lore Olympus is like a web comic, and then it gets transferred to a graphic novel and became the #1 selling graphic novel of last year. There's a crossover from digital to print media. People used to just watch CBS and Channel 7, and now people are watching YouTube and streaming services. It kind of, the pool gets bigger for you to get your information from. I've never thought digital comics were a thing that we're going to put out tactile comics, but maybe it'll put it out because the age group of people who read tactile comics are dying. I don't think it's a digital thing. When Spider-Man, the first movie, came out in 2000, we were selling like 250 copies of Spider-Man every month that would come out. And now every superhero movie is #1, and our Spider-Man sales are like 60 copies every issue. So Is that because of digital? No, it's because nobody knows comic books. Nobody knows to get into comic books. The crossover from movies to comic books doesn't exist, even though the same company makes them. But on the other hand, like, I still read regular books. I like the tactile thing. And people, I think, feel that they like the tactile thing of holding something. You know, I collect things. So I don't know if that's transferring to my kids of collecting things. But I collect things that are personal to me that I think is cool. Like, for example, I collect acrylic things that have coins in them that you probably like, or paperweights that you saw on your grandmother's desk. Like, every time I go to an estate sale, I buy one of those. It's that now I have like 40 of them. So I don't know if they have that. I feel it's like a compulsion thing that I have to have. I don't know if kids today have that compulsion thing in the real world. I think the biggest misconception of owning a comic book store is people think that you just sit here and read comic books all day. Like, even my employees, when their friends find out that they work here, and they're like, "Oh, you must be so awesome to work at Tate's." And they're like, "Yeah, it's awesome to work at Tate's, but like, it's work." Once you get into the fold of working here, it's like nonstop. We're always processing stuff. We're always getting stuff out. We're always trying to think of what's cool for you to get. It's almost we have to curate what customer might like before they might like it. You have to always be thinking about the store. And that's what happened. That's what made me break down, because I would go home and think about the store and not get any sleep. Then come in at 6 a.m. and just be working all day and be wondering why we're not doing well. And I'm like, what is going on? So it just takes a lot. Right before COVID, I was ready to close the store down. I was just like done with it. I was like, we're going to liquidate. And then this virus appeared. And, you know, it was like, kind of like, it was, instead of killing the store, it was like, oh, you're closed for 2 months. You can reset. They shut off all the comic book flow. So there's nothing coming in and nothing going out. So it kind of was like a reset. And our new staff is, all the people who stayed, and our new staff has been fantastic. And the store is the store, and it's unique and it's weird. And people's stores are unique and weird to their own stores. I love going to other comic book stores. I love seeing what they're doing. I love seeing what they're not doing. And now there's a lot of stores that look like this store that didn't look like this store in the past. So I guess it's good that there's pop culture is exploding into everything, but it's also bad that I'm not as unique as I was before. It became its own monster. You know, like just growing and organically growing on its own. Like when we won the year before we won the Eisner, and we submitted, the facilitator of the Eisner, my wife and I were walking around Comic-Con, and he saw us at the convention. He was like, your store is like this convention. And that was like 2008. I would never have thought that I would have even knew all the people who were in the publishing, who I call friends of Image and Dark Horse, and all these people who've met and were young when I was young and grew up and loved the store. For the future, I don't know. But I just think the store seems to have affected people in an interesting way. Every year, and every time I'm down here, you know, like people say, "Oh, thank you for having the store." So it's cool that way. It's great to hear.